Hey, Sarah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear? This was such an inopportune moment. I was jerking around to telemarketer.
You're wrong for
My
that.
goodness, I'm very upset. This meeting has interrupted my recreation.
You are too funny.
Off the
Oh,
anyway.
mercy. Send her my way. Maybe she's for hire.
Well, yeah. Hey, maybe she wants to go into real estate. Maybe she wants to get some legal shit. I don't know.
Oh,
Anyway, how's your week? How's pick?
oh, he's doing fine. The week's going great.
That's good.
Yeah, week's going great. He's fine. Oh,
Sarah, it's okay. It's 7 o'clock. I apologize. I got on so late, but okay,
no.
everyone. It's about 7 o'clock. So in the spirit of keeping everything on, let me go ahead and get started with a little introduction to Sarah and Legal Shield. It's a great company. Sarah's a great representative for it. Anyway, okay. One thing about the business we're in is it can be very litigious now, especially with COVID-19. We have all sorts of issues popping up now. All of a sudden, employers are suing employees for bringing COVID into the workplace, and employers are suing employees are suing employers for saying, "Hey, you made work and I got COVID." So you got to be careful with stuff like that. Okay. Before I introduce Sarah, I want to show you a couple of things that have been going on in our world, especially with the pandemic. Uh, Now, in our Facebook groups, we have a couple of groups, and in our groups, occasionally, actually more often than increasingly, we see legal questions being asked. And of course, unless there is an attorney in our Facebook groups, which no one's actually stepped up and said there is, all we can do is say, hey, look, I'm not an attorney, but this is my experience. The person here posted something a while back. In fact, it was back in September, was asking if a mobile home on two different pieces of land, but the mobile home was owned, did the person who didn't own the mobile home have the right to evict? That's an attorney question. So this is one reason I like Legal Shield. I call Legal Shield at least twice a month. This month I only used it once, but it was for a doozy, and I'll show you in a bit here. Another post, typically, this was actually a text to me.
In the kitchen.
All right. With regards to recommending things like probate attorneys, I just call Legal Shield. I remember one of our members asked for the SIC code for our industry because he had Legal Shield. If you have Legal Shield, take advantage of it. That should probably be the first place you call if you have legal questions, in my opinion. I had to program myself to do, and I know. Okay, here's another one. Okay, this person posted in our Facebook group asking if someone can recommend an attorney who would someone with regards to a mobile home roof repair, or actually replacement. Now, to replace a house roof on a typical ranch style home is $1,000 or so. Obviously, they got gouged for $22,000 to replace a mobile home roof. That again is a Legal Shield question. How do you get back at that? Okay. Another one of our members said that she was in a car accident, and how should she deal with this situation? And again, I mentioned trusts before. This is why I brought up the trusts with her, and this is why she's bringing up, hey, can the trust help and whatnot? Okay, realistically, this is illegal. Just go to Legal Shield attorney. Okay, and take a look who the plaintiffs hired. Hawk Law. Okay, remember those guys? It's that guy with the finger. We get money from. Okay, anyway. Now this is my own. Now I've only used Legal Shield once this month. I usually use it at least 2 times, but this was a doozy. Okay, this is an eviction that I got in. Actually, it was in March 17th. Okay, this is a problem child tenant I had, and this is also going to give you some landlord tips if you're a landlord or a relatively new one. Okay, I learned a few things in this one. Short story is I filed eviction in November 23rd, 2021. Okay, that's a mistake. That's 2020. Okay, you can't file in the future. But I filed eviction in November 23rd of 2020. Look how long in Richland County. Okay, I think in Lexington County it's a bit quicker. Richland County has been really slow, and even now, as far as I know, they're still not meeting in person. Okay, basically kind of like a Zoom online. But the final, I used LegalShield consultation and whatnot to get an award to be able to eject the tenant. Okay, and there's a few things I learned about this. One of the things is, okay, as you know, there's been a CDC moratorium on evictions, and they just recently, oops, someone's chatting. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Okay, anyway, there's a CDC moratorium on evictions, and they just extended it through the end of June 30th of this year. Okay, if you're a landlord who has been paid, okay, you might have a little bit more pain to deal with if you're going to evict strictly on non-payment of rent. I spoke to the LegalShield attorney, and they said you might want to try this. And this is what actually helped me get my beat out. You can see here on the actual eviction form, it does have a case where you X out and say, yeah, non-payment of rent, I need to get rid of this person. But you throw the kitchen sink out and check everything where they violated lease terms. Because in this case here, I didn't get an eviction and ejectment awarded to me on non-payment of rent. Chances of that going through would have been slim. I got them on lease violations besides the non-payment of rent. In fact, in my eviction hearing itself, there's actually someone there who was just on the basis of non-payment of rent, and the same magistrate said, I can't do that right now. Okay. Now she didn't dismiss the case, but she said we have to carry it forward, basically past the June 30th deadline. Anyway, so a few things about this. You can see here, I put everything in there. And by the way, I have a lease that with LegalShield is almost, I'm never going to say 100% foolproof, as close to foolproof as possible. It's court proven. Okay. So that lease is probably the tightest lease I've ever, I've been able to develop with the help of downloadable in the members area if you're interested. Okay. I think it's a really good lease. Anyway, these are some lessons learned about the foreclosure. Okay. One mistake I made, South Carolina law says if the house looks vacant, okay, and if there's no good reason the tenant is gone, you have to wait 15 days to abandon or not. Okay. However, the exception is if the utilities are turned off, namely the electric. Okay. If the electric is turned off, you don't have to wait that 15 days. You can just take away. I made the mistake of filing eviction before I checked the electrical service. Okay. The electrical service was turned off by the tenant about a month before I filed eviction. What I should have done, I should have checked the electrical service first, and when I found out it was off, don't even bother filing eviction. I should just change out the logs. Okay, that would have saved me several months as well as $55. Okay. Also, never file eviction just on the basis of non-payment of rent, even in a non-pandemic time. Now, these are my personal rules. You have to, I'm not an attorney. You have to make the best use for yourself. Okay. But I'm never filing an eviction just on non-payment of rent because that may not be enough to get them out of the house. Okay. I include other lease violations as well. Also, I no longer schedule set outs. In Richland County, if you need to set something out, the South Carolina law says if it's $500 or more possessions in a house, okay, you need to schedule a set out. Basically, you got to set things on the curb. I think it's for 48 hours. If they don't pick it up after 48 hours, then you can dispose of it. Okay. But to me, that's a pain because then I have to go back and still take care of it. Okay. Anyway, so I've asked several, and this is again guidance. Okay. I've asked several, the times I've evicted, which is actually quite a bit. I've asked several deputies and constables, and they can use as constables. And I've seen some pretty expensive stuff, in my opinion. And I've said, does this look like $500 worth of stuff? And they don't want to get involved. They say, oh, we have nothing to do with that. And they just throw their hands up. So now, from now, there's never $500 worth of stuff in there. I don't even schedule set outs anymore. Right now, that's me. Your mileage may vary on that one. And I'm not an attorney, but that's what my goal is to get rental income with the least amount of hassles as possible. So that's why I use LegalShield. Okay. I use their guidance to help me optimize how I'm going to get my rental income. Okay. Tonight we have a treat as usual. You know, Sarah has been very kind to speak before each of our meetings, and I'm very grateful she is. Sarah Mitchell is the LegalShield, and I think we're very lucky to have her. She's formally trained in business administration and accounting. She's a former manager at Bell South, so she knows business. Signed on with LegalShield in 1998 and now is full-time with LegalShield. And Sarah's specialty is with small business and employee benefits to help small business maximize use of LegalShield services for affordable legal services and identity theft protection. Sarah, let me do this. I'm going to make you a co-host. Okay, and if I could, let me see here. If you could switch on your screen. Are you
Am I sharing? I mean, can you see it?
Yes, you are. It's great.
Do you see it?
Oh, yeah. I see it, Sarah.
You do see the screen? Bob?
I see your screen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
How well can you hear me?
I can hear you pretty good.
Okay,
good.
Super.
I think it was me cutting out.
Okay. Well, if I start cutting out, just, I don't know, text, try and say something. Just interrupt and let me know. So technology, okay. We know how that works.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, Ronald. Thanks, Selma. Appreciate it. Yeah, Selma says she can hear us.
Okay, super.
Take it away, Sarah.
All right, great. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I promise to talking fast. However, you'll have the resources that you need, the website, and you know Bob, and I'll make certain that you have my number as well so that you can reach out to us. We just don't have enough time to cover this very, very thorough. But I'm very excited that Midlands REIA and Bob has been, you know, Bob, his passion is helping individuals. So here he saw this, the value, and immediately said, not only am I going to benefit from this, but I would like all those that I'm in touch with, communication with, to be aware of the services because it truly can save them a tremendous amount of money. LegalShield has a portfolio of services providing powerful benefits, protecting your business, your...
Hey, Sarah, I apologize. You are cutting out a bit. Is everyone hearing Sarah okay, or is she cutting out on y'all?
Okay, what about? How about now?
Okay. Andy said you're loud and clear. Okay, I'm sorry. It might just be me then. Keep going, Sarah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, is this
Ronald
better?
said, I'm sorry. It's probably just my internet. I'm in Pennsylvania, so I apologize. I'm not where I usually am in Lexington. Okay. But go ahead, Sarah. I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up now.
Okay. Well, if anyone else unmute and let me know, but I will, go fast here. So it's a portfolio of services, and that's what we're excited about. Truth, I've had the service since 1998, and I cannot begin to tell you how much they have saved me over the years, not just business, but personal as well. So I too, like Bob, love the opportunity to share because being a small business owner and being small business owners, if some of you are like how I was and is still, because I'm still a small business owner, there are many times I would have loved to use an attorney, but it was making that financial decision. And what we find that with LegalShield, really, as you can see right here, with the right resources, running a business can be easier. And now that we're experiencing that, we would have it no other way. So, ask yourself, have you ever experienced, I'm asking you, have you ever experienced, or any of your business colleagues or friends or family who are in business, any of the following: debt collection issues? Bob referenced some of those earlier. I think he's used pretty much every category here almost. And what about signing contracts not reviewed? We're not in 1899 where a handshake was all that was needed. It's a different day. So again, signing those contracts that are not reviewed. What about signing just regular documents not reviewed by your law firm? How about, have you ever experienced contractor and supplier disputes or internet security breaches? Breaches are taking place now everywhere. Facebook and many others just had one not too long ago. Product liability issues. What about employee theft concerns, tax audits, employee confidentiality issues, threats of consumer lawsuits? It doesn't take but 30 seconds for someone these days to say, well, you're going to hear from my attorney, and many of them will pay $35, $40 and cause you grief, even if it's a frugal situation. I mean, we're in a very litigious society. So again, when it comes down to presentations that Bob and I have done in the past, those were the top 10 legal issues. And according to LegalShield, they have collected data. Those are the top 10 legal issues that we as business owners experience. However, as reference, COVID is in the picture now, and there's a curve. So what does that mean? Yes, debt collection issues, but the question may be, should I send a debt collection letter under the circumstances? Should I report that debt to a credit repository? So that's where we're helping so many business owners with getting the clarification that they need to go forward with running their business without being taken advantage of. So COVID is truly, it has just shifted. And so many business owners have fallen into cracks and have had things to happen that could have been avoided if only they had legal counsel at their disposal. So that's where we're helping with that. All of you familiar with COVID. Some of the COVID issues will be with us for a long, long time. I promise you that. So these are, again, here's a list of many. What rights do you have for refunds, travel expenses, health insurance? I mean, OSHA, we're working from home. Well, now with the COVID vaccine, there are a whole lot of regulation. You could be entering into a contract, and now, do they have the right to ask if you've been vaccinated and all of that? So we just have an entirely different scenario, and you are experts rightfully in your own area. But when it comes down to COVID, I don't think any of us have the time to become an expert in those areas. And what we have found, that 60% of small business owners said they experienced a legal event in the past 2 years. Has nothing to do with handcuffs. It's just a situation, contract, something they entered into, or a lawsuit. And if only they could have picked up the phone and called their law firm. All the Paycheck Protection, PPP, and the EIDL and SBA Express Bridge loans and the SBA debt relief, all people are tangled up. Business owners are tangled in those loans. I know of some who've received monies and they aren't clear as to how it should be properly appropriated there. So could that come back and bite them in the butt, for lack of a better choice of words? Yes. So what if they could pick up the phone and call their law firm? So just imagine having affordable access, as Bob has stated in so many instances, to your law firm for personal and business protection for less than the price of a cup of coffee a day. I mean, that's what we're looking at. As Bob has stated, he has used it so many times, and I too use it extremely frequently. And we're not having to worry about billable hours. Our members are not worrying about billable hours. That is so huge. So let me just share with you, and I recommend you write down our home business supplement, which is a wonderful fit for many of you on the phone. Bob is getting all of that business representation for $12.95. It's not even fair. He should be paying more than that. But that's what we're looking at. He has added that to his personal protection, which is only $24.95. Bob pay 37, less than $40 a month for all of what he shared with you. How many attorneys can you talk to for 5 seconds for $40? I don't know of any, unless you're calling the all nines, twos, and threes, and all that. So here again, we have the home business supplement that you can add to your personal plan, which is $24.95, and it's providing you that other layer for your business. Legal consultation, research, advice. They write letters on your behalf. They make phone calls on your behalf. Just imagine receiving correspondence and not having to ponder, what does this mean? Tap the app on your phone at the stoplight, and now you're talking with your law firm right here. For those in Columbia, South Carolina, 8910 Two Notch Road. They even document review. Call your law firm. Debt collection letters. Call your law firm. They even provide you Schedule C and Schedule E representation in the event you're audited. Have I used that area? Absolutely. It made a big difference with me consulting with my tax attorney upon receipt of that information versus going into a full-blown audit with a shoebox. So that's what you're looking at. And so many of us now are working across state lines. So just know this is also providing you interstate services. That is huge. And you have other services there for, again, at a discount, 25% discount, we can highlight some of those. And when you complement that plan with your personal plan, so on the personal side, have you signed a contract, or been overcharged, or received a speeding ticket, or been a victim of identity theft? This is that complement that I was talking about. And I think all of us can reference having had some of that at the top of the mind at one point or another. So what does your app look like? Bob, we all have the app on our phone. If you have your phone, you have your attorney right in the palm of your hand. That's what's so powerful and why we're so excited about what we're doing. So I'm going to transition and just share with you what the personal side is offering. For $24.95, you are now in a position, empowered, to call your law firm for personal issues. I have used it from cell phone issues where they resolve it, resort issues in Hawaii where they resolve it, putting up a privacy fence here, the 6 foot in our home here in the Summit, where they went and intervened with the HOA. They resolve it, moved into this home, and the cell phone didn't work. Suncom wanted to charge me $175 early termination fee. Got no satisfaction. Guess what? Law firm resolved it. I can go, but like Bob, I can go on and on and on as to how I've used the service. And here they write letters on your behalf. They make phone calls on your behalf. All of that personal. If you're W-2, which I think 99% of you have some Schedule C activity, entrepreneurship there because of what you're doing. But if someone is on the line and you have and you're not investing, you're not that 1099 category, your basic filing of taxes is W-2. So what are you looking at? IRS audit assistance there, civil and trial defense, part of that same $24.95. Guess what? In addition to all that, you may know someone, or you could be one that is separated. Guess what? We cover uncontested divorce, uncontested adoption, name change, all of that for that same $24.95. All you're looking at is perhaps court costs. I mean, there are some people who've been separated so long, they don't even remember each other's name. We can help them with not having to go forward anymore in that situation. When it comes down to speeding tickets, I've tested that area as well. You take a picture of your ticket, it goes to the law firm, and they are there to intervene and see how successful they can be in negotiating your points and your fine. I used that at Myrtle Beach. I was ecstatic when they were able to negotiate. No, they don't fix tickets, but I tell you, when you can have an attorney there, it's going to make a great difference, okay? A greater difference. So that's part of it. Estate planning. I've done more will workshops in 2020 than ever, and I've been in LegalShield almost 25 years, collectively all my other years. Why is that? Because it's greater awareness. I think we all can attest to that. So here again, tap the app. You can start working on your will from the comfort of your home, right from your phone. Is that huge? Is that huge? Most individuals in your industry and a lot of us entrepreneurs, we're always adding, subtracting, changing. Well, where's all that as it relates to the will? You work hard for what you have. You sure don't want someone else to be in a decision as to how it's going to be divided up there. And half of it may be going into probate, and a lot of what you work for didn't even go to those that you would have loved to have get that. So here we have that estate planning portfolio where you get your living will, your last will and testament, your healthcare power of attorney, your durable power of attorney, all of that for that same $24.95 plus 24/7 emergency access. We don't even want to talk about that as to how great the need is to be where in the event you are questioned, entertained, or being, threatened in a situation dealing with law enforcement, or your child or your teenager there. What if they could have an app on their phone and tap the phone just like that? And now 24/7, they are talking with legal counsel. That is so huge to me that right now in our society. We're interesting times. I'll leave it at that. But I certainly would want anyone I care about to have that kind of access. There are other services there that could fall under your membership discount. What was that, Bob? Okay, your membership discount. So again, what are we about? We're just saying, hey, look at affordable legal protection in and out of the courtroom. That's all. The attorneys that with the civil suit, and then you can add other trial defense services here. I'm not getting into all that, but you're actually looking at someone in the courtroom and out of the courtroom. And sometime when you can have that conversation outside of the courtroom, you may not need to go inside of the courtroom. That's the power of our service. Identity theft is another huge issue in the country right now, and we are helping with that in the biggest way. I mean, we're we have the most robust identity theft service in existence. Forbes Advisor already identified us as being the winner for 2021. And last year we were a winner for 2020, having the most robust identity theft service in North America. We don't just monitor the credit, your credit score and all of that. We're looking at the entire U factor as it relates to your investments. I mean, the dark web, public records, all of that that could cause us to lose everything that we have worked so far with, one, tarnishing, our name and committing crimes and things like that in our name. One of our members, this gentleman make multiple 6 digits in LegalShield. And of course, he shared on a call that someone had gone and filed for unemployment in his and his wife's name and opened up 2 checking accounts in their name. We don't want to be in a situation like that. However, with him having ID Shield, he had nothing to worry about. Everyone's not that fortunate. So you're looking at identity theft being on the rise. We have Facebook, social media, all of that, and it's the U factor. So we're just increasing your awareness as to what's available. All of this can be gotten through Bob's website. And, lawsuits happen, here, what do we do? Just let your provider, attorney handle your legal defense. That's what we're doing. And of course, as I stated earlier, $37.90 for you. And this is protecting your family, your spouse or significant other. The personal plan covering children up to the age of 26, living at home, regardless to how many. That is huge. If they're away in college or deported military, they are covered. I mean, that's unbelievable. So that's what you're looking at. And of course, you can add the identity theft for $15.95 as an individual, or if you are a family, that's $29.95. Our portfolio of service also expands to commercial drivers plans. We have gun owners plan. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a gun owner Zoom on Monday. We have share riders, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, protection for those individuals. So a portfolio of services, and we even offer it as an employee benefit. So again, go to Bob's website, midlandsrea.wearelegalshield.com. You can view the portfolio of services there. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 803-622-5334. Happy to answer any of your questions and direct you back to Bob's website for your enrollment. We do have perks. They will save you thousands of dollars. Truly, my membership, all that I have is over $100 a month. However, because of my utilization of the perks, it's pretty much at no cost because of my savings. So yours truly can be in that same category. So having said that, I'm going to stop the screen share and turn it back over to Bob to continue the meeting. I am Sarah Mitchell, Columbia, South Carolina, working very closely with Bob. And I'm just honored to have been able to share with you tonight. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Bob.
Okay, I think my internet connection's kind of spotty. I'm still in Pennsylvania. I'm using my dad's internet connection, so I'm going to turn off my video. I've heard that sometimes makes things a little smoother. So I apologize if anyone wanted to see the gaps between my teeth. You probably won't be able to do it this time. So not till I get back in South Carolina. So anyway, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. As usual, I really appreciate having you around. And just as a reiteration, I've only used legal doozy is to get a stubborn tenant. This guy just didn't know how to quit. I'll give him that. He was stubborn, but LegalShield made it actually him out in a time when there's a federal moratorium on evictions right now. Okay, so it's been well worth my membership. Okay. Now, the actual meeting itself, okay?
You just kicked that ball out there. I don't want to hear that your leg hurt and you standing up on the top of the wall.
I apologize, folks. Let me temporarily, okay.
I'm going to put them in movies one day.
How do you do that? Okay. Okay, there's a way to do this.
Bye.
Uh-huh. Okay. Oh, mute them from the participants screen. Okay, thank you. Okay, mute all. There we go. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're allowed to unmute yourselves. Okay. But you are allowed to unmute yourself, of course. Okay. And this is meant to be kind of interactive, so please don't be shy. If you got something you'd like to ask a question or something, please, unmute yourself and pipe in. This is a Midlands REIA meeting. This is the actual meeting with the special guest speaker. And I think we have a doozy for you. But before we start, we are not meeting in person yet. Okay, I'm keeping an eye out on the news saying, if this supposed herd immunity is supposed to take place. And looking to see how many people have been vaccinated. I thought we were going to start meeting maybe in the summer, but I'm using one of my friends, Andy. Andy's on here now. Him is the canary in the coal mine, if you will. Okay, and he saw an uptick. Actually, I think his son might have been exposed to someone with COVID. So for now, let's wait until the end of the summer. We'll start meeting again in person in September. I just assume be safe rather than sorry, so to speak. Okay, so tentatively, hopefully the Zoom meetings will stop in September. Okay, and we typically meet at the Hyde Place, Columbia Harbison on Lake Marine Boulevard in Irmo. Liability disclosure: nobody here, at least as far as I'm concerned, is a licensed attorney or financial planner. Okay, so anything you hear at our meeting from me or anyone else is just personal experiences. And unless you get something like legal, okay, we can't really depend on anyone giving proper legal advice. If you question the legal or financial wisdom of anything you hear in our meetings or from anyone, unless they're licensed, of course, please seek qualified help, because technically we're not it, okay? Anyway, one of the REIA goals we had was to drastically increase the success for newer investors. Okay, it's kind of a given. And in fact, this guy here, he's selling his own search engine optimization services for websites, but even he kind of agrees. And I've heard this from the national speaker. Nationwide, only about 3% of the average people like us who get into real estate investing ever do even a single deal, okay? In Colombia, I've heard it's a little bit higher, maybe closer to 10%, but that's, okay, that means at least 90% of people aren't, I mean, they're reading about it, they're searching YouTube for information, but they're just not doing anything. And I don't know if it's because they're not able to, or, because they have jobs, obligations, and whatnot. But anyway, our goal is to drastically increase that, the success rate. One of our goals is obviously more workshops and better. Carlos Barrera gave me the idea of using cartels. Okay, really subgroups. Okay, he thought cartels sounded a lot more hip, if you will. Also, one thing here is, the gurus, the traveling gurus come to town, and there's actually a couple local people here fancy themselves gurus. They'll charge you really expensive coaching programs, and they'll say, oh, don't pay cards, and you'll be able to pay it off after a deal or two. It's no big deal. Well, yes, it is a big deal. When they know the statistics too, how high the failure rate is for people even doing a single deal. Here's what I believe, okay? It doesn't take a whole lot of money to learn how to do the basics of this business, okay? I suggest you learn bootstrap, learn how to do it first. Okay, let's say, for example, I think one of the local REIA leaders, he charges like $5,000 for a wholesaling course and then $25,000 for his overall mentoring or something. Don't put it on your credit card. Learn the basics for cheap or preferably free, and then just earn it first. And then you decide if you want an expensive coaching program. So if you still don't do anything, at least you don't have it on your credit cards. Earn the money first. Don't put it on credit. Okay, I've gone down that path. It sucks. I don't like that. Okay. Our goal at Midlands REIA is to greatly increase success rate, affordably being the key word, to at least 50%. I'd love to see 100%. For beginners, get you up and running as quickly as possible, independently from anyone else as soon as possible. Don't get me wrong. As much as we'd like to keep you around as annual members year after year, we know your situation changes. You might probably outgrow us and other REIAs. You'll head off on your own. You might move to a different part of the country. One of our members is actually out in Oregon right now, and I guess she does deals here in Colombia. Okay. Ultimately, I'd like to get her up and running to the point where she doesn't need anybody, even us, if she doesn't want to stay with us. Okay, because she's out in Oregon. All right. For the advanced investors, don't get me wrong, we love having her. What's best for her. For advanced investors, we want to provide the best continuing resources possible for the investors who do stay with us year after year. Okay. In fact, this went update for two of our multi-year members. I don't know if they're on this call tonight, but I hope they still plan to meet with me. I want to give them an update on some of the marketing techniques. Why the low success rate, this nationwide 3%? Okay, I think it's because it's easy to do and it's easy to not do. It's a low barrier for entry, so it's too easy to just say, you know what, I didn't lose anything, all right? I think that's the wrong attitude, okay? I think if you just take a consistent, disciplined approach to this, you'll see all of a sudden the deals will say good deals, not bad deals. And you'll see along the timeline, success and failure can look very similar to each other until one day, if you make those projects incorrect over time, you'll all of a sudden see success one day. And it's going to be like taking the cork off the bottle. Okay, all of a sudden you'll see where all these deals come from. Okay. On the other hand, if you make over and over again, you don't learn from your mistakes, eventually you're going to see failure. Now, failure is not fatal. Okay, you can always recover from failure. So even if I've had some pretty big standing. Okay, just stick with it and realize failure doesn't mean death. Okay. Okay, a good club or association will offer an abundance of resources, great networking. We strive to do that. I'm not saying we're doing that. We strive to do that. Give the best training possible. In fact, I'm actually in Pennsylvania visiting my parents, and I'm there for an extended time because, well, my mom's in the hospital now. But anyway, I'm trying to put together like a negotiation course. So while I'm waiting for things to happen and whatnot. Okay. So I want to, in South Carolina, I want to maybe put like maybe a half-day negotiation course or something like that, okay, and put it out there for the members. A good association always seeks to improve and adapt. Strategies need to be changed and whatnot as the markets change. And a good association will learn and teach best practices. And I say for local investing, these gurus who come to town and whatnot, generally an overall view of how to teach things nationally. When it comes to local investing, like specifically, say in South Carolina, I've seen people get burned, guru generalized approach. Okay. So a good real estate investor association will have investors who are doing deals in the area and they know the ins and outs and what works and what truly doesn't in that area. Now, for example, HGTV is probably the worst place, I think, to learn about real estate investing. And you have so many gurus now, Flip or Flop, Tarek and Christina, they put this up and they're showing the numbers of a deal and saying, look, we're going to end up making $53,000 total profit when all said and done. Anyway, Kristen, she actually has a good Facebook group of her own. It's an accountability group. Okay. So I'd search for Kristen, see if you can join her group. And she just bears everything. Okay. She'll tell you the mistakes she's making, all that. Now, don't get me wrong. Me and a few other of our members have said, don't do this because we made those mistakes. And she will ultimately sometimes repeat them. But in the end, I think she's doing the right thing. She's on the right path to financial freedom. But Kristen, she knew right away, where's the holding fees? That's missing. Okay, right away. That's something and all these gurus nationwide, if you just, unless you sign up for their coaching, they're expensive $25,000 coaching, they're not going to teach you stuff like that. Okay, now we are on the major Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, but if nothing else, okay, this is our Facebook group. There's a lot of deals being cut right here. This is where people have been able to place deals for sale or deals for funding. In fact, the easy way to get to that is you don't have, if you want, you can memorize that link. Is if you go to the Midlands REIA website and right here, it says here, click here for deals and money. If you click that, it'll redirect our Facebook group. Okay, so that's the easy way. Go ahead and click that and click join, and you don't have to be an annual member to be a member of that group. Okay, we just want to facilitate good deal flow. It's actually pretty active. Now the guards, I keep getting this maybe once or twice a month. So I'll say again, okay, we do have a cash list, and this is general cash buyers. It's over 50 cash buyers with their phone numbers. Okay, so if you actually dial this phone number, you can probably you can call Tony. You dial this one, you'll talk. Okay, now I suggest you not call them unless you have a deal. Don't just call to say, hey, I just called to say hi. Some gurus say call them and find out what for where they like to buy. Don't do that unless you have a deal, because you're just wasting their time and you're wasting your time. Okay, bring a deal to them. And where the cash buyers list is if you log into the members area, you're going to see this pull down menu until you log in. When you log in, you'll see this pull down menu and you click cash buyers. Okay. A typical rehab workshop was, and Blair's actually going to have her own REIA starting up in the Sand Hills area soon. I think it's going to be a great REIA, okay, especially for the people in the northeast part of Columbia. But Blair, and she allowed us to use one of her rehabs for 3 workshops. The first one was before rehab. The second one was in the middle of rehab, which is this one right here. And the third work rehab. Okay. In fact, her house was just recently, it's in Rosewood. Her house was actually put under contract. It's supposed to close this coming week on the 16th. So we'll see if it closes or not. And it sounds like she got a pretty good price for it too. And this is Eddie Sabina, the only contractor I trust up here in the Midlands. Okay, so with Eddie and this kind of workshop, this is something you really can't lose at. I mean, they know their stuff. Okay, now if you could, please, now we haven't had much activity on it lately, but if you check our calendar of events regularly, I'm regularly updating that to, let me see here. I'm regularly updating that to, okay. Yeah, I got you, Sarah. Okay. Thanks for presenting. I'm regularly updating this calendar of events to show what might be of interest to you. Okay. Like for example, the Palmetto real estate work, they usually meet every third Tuesday, stuff like that. They haven't been because of the pandemic. Blair's REIA, when she gets that thing going, that's going to be up here. So please check the calendar regularly and see if there's something there that might interest you, okay? We're always looking for ways to improve topics, workshops, subgroups. Want to hear, hey, you guys are doing a great job and all this stuff. We really want to hear, hey, you guys could do this better, okay? And if we can improve it, if something we can do, we'll do it, okay? So please improve. Annual members benefits overview, okay? Discounts on Midlands REIA trainings and workshops for the annual members, and unless it's an outside speaker, if it's an outside speaker, which we occasionally have come in, we can't control their attendance fees. However, if it's a Midlands REIA one like that, like Blair, like the workshop held by Blair and Eddie I showed you before, typically free, okay? And maybe for non-annual members, like a nominal fee, $40 or something like that, okay? And when we're meeting in person, annual members, general meetings, okay? And annual members get access to the members area at the website with the local cash buyers, documents, videos, other resources. And one thing, now we have a close group of people with Midlands REIA, Andy being one of them, Andy, Adrian, Mark. Anyway, this is close, guy me wrong. If you're not a member, if you're not an annual member of Midlands REIA, I doubt anyone's going to say, hey, you're not a member, I'm not going to talk to you. They'll still talk to you, okay? But I think you can get a lot more attention and priority if you become an annual member. Like, for example, in my case specifically, okay, if you're an annual member, I'll drop what I'm doing and I'll discuss with you, okay? Because I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I'm just a mistakes that hopefully you can learn not to do, okay? When you become an annual member, the first thing I want to do is get you up and running as quickly as possible. Specific to us, okay? I want to schedule with you 3 webinars. They don't have to be scheduled all at once, okay? We can schedule one at a time if you like, or if you want, we can schedule all at once. Webinar number 1 is on finding sources with and without having to rely on realtors, okay? For example, the online public index is a great place to find pre-foreclosure. This stuff is free. You don't have to buy Upstream or any other list providers, anything like that. Okay, this is free stuff, all right? Webinar number 2 is the basics of all cash purchases and sales, cash wholesaling, and cash rehab. Webinar 3 is the fun one, creative financing techniques. Okay, this is where you get to use your imagination. Okay, and what we're doing is we're trying to put as many tools into your toolkit as possible. So when a deal comes your way, you can take what tools you have and see, hey, can I form this into a deal? Okay, so that's the purpose of those 3 webinars. Now, these are not recorded webinars. These are live with me, all right? So these are meant to be specifically customized to your experience, your knowledge, okay? So I don't believe in that whole pre-recorded webinar thing. I mean, any knucklehead, here's a pre-recorded webinar. I want to hold these personally with you because it also gives me a chance to learn from you as well, okay? Each webinar is about 1.5 hours long. At one time, I went into one big webinar. People were falling asleep. So we decided to break it down into 3. Now, we provide the basic, I believe, tools and training to succeed if you want to succeed. The most important step is you must take consistent and persistent action. Remember that 97% failure rate nationwide. I believe people give up too easy, okay? And they're not consistent and they're not persistent. One seller, I tell you what, If you meet with a seller and you haven't been personally kicked out of his house by that seller, you haven't lived life to the fullest yet. Okay. You just have to get past that and say, hey, look, anyway. Also, we're here to provide support. Okay. We're more like reference librarians. I don't, I've had some people say, hey, do you offer mentoring programs? I'm really to do that. Me, myself, I'm not a mentor. Okay. I'm a reference librarian. I'm a big fan of being a reference librarian. Okay. I use the word mentor kind of because you have people out there just off of Google and YouTube and calling themselves mentors. I got a big problem with that. Okay. Anyway, choose, and if you do choose a mentor in the end, choose one that has survived your recession holding property, like the 2007, 2008 one. This pandemic, there was no recession yet. Okay, I think we got a monster one coming, and I'm looking forward to it, frankly, because I want to. Now, I like Morpheus. This guy is cool. Okay, but like Morpheus, we can only show you the door. You're the one who has to walk through it. All right. Now, is any association, any gurus, any mentors you go to, you have to take the action, consistent and persistent action. Now, let me show you something else. I just found this one here. I thought this was kind of okay. This is an Australian comedian. Okay, as a joke, he entered the Mr. New York State bodybuilding competition in 2011 under the heavyweight category. He wins. Okay, and since he was the only one participating, he actually won the competition. Okay. And if when I was fact checking this, I did a search on Google of his winning routine popped up. It was hilarious. Okay. So if you get nothing else out of this meeting, by all means, check out Hamish Blake's winning routine on YouTube. But anyway, bottom line is getting nice, make some money in real estate investing just by accident. Okay. Just get in the game. All right. You'll never, sometimes people just say, oh, I'll never do that. It'll never happen to me. So just show up, get in the game. Okay. Annual membership for Midlands REIA. There are free REIAs out there. Check them out first before you decide if you want to join ours for a fee. Okay. There are free ones out. We charge $125 per year for one person, $200 for a couple, which includes free entrance and benefits. Of course, this being online, it's free. Until we person again. Non-members get the first visit for free, and afterwards it's $20 at the door with no other benefits. Okay, this is when the meetings are at our usual location, the Hyatt Place, Columbia Harbison. Okay, and if you'd like to apply the door fee to your annual membership, should you decide to join that night. Okay. Anyway, let's bring on. I apologize, Sean. I went a little long with that introduction. But tonight we have a treat. Okay, Sean McKay of American IRA. This gentleman knows deal structure with tax-exempt funds. Okay, he's senior vice American IRA. He's been a real estate investor for over 15 years himself, so he plays the game too. And his specialty seems like is buying and selling tax lien certificates and notes, which frankly is suited for self-directed IRAs and self-directed investments. And he served on the board of Metroliner REIA in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you don't know what the Metroliner REIA is, Google it after this. It's one of the REIAs on the East Coast. Okay, it's a great REIA. He chaired the Charlotte Landlord Group at one time. He's been very active, and he knows how to maximize investor resources, especially using retirement accounts. Sean, are you there?
I am. Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Do you have a PowerPoint presentation?
I do. If I can share the screen, hopefully I can get to it.
If anyone can't hear Sean, please let us know.
Okay, great.
I think we're okay. Thank you, Sean.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Bob. It's always an honor to be a part of your group. Bob is a bit of a glutton for punishment. I believe this is the 4th time you've allowed me to speak. So, excuse me, I appreciate this very much. I'm going to apologize ahead of time between allergies and I've spent the entire day training new sales team members. So the voice is a little shot. If I start cutting this off early, again, apologies. This hopefully goes well here. But Yeah, so ultimately our service is self-directed IRAs and 401ks. And I know typically with REIA meetings, there's kind of a vast array of knowledge. Some are not familiar with it at all, and others are extremely familiar with it, and I'm sure could teach a class on it. Excuse me. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a different presentation. It's going to be kind of atypical strategies, if nothing else, just so that Bob doesn't have to listen to the same old from me. So again, today is going to be a little bit different. And also we're going to focus on dealing with accounts that are a little bit smaller in size. So it's really easy, as we all know, to invest in real estate if we have millions of dollars to invest, or if we have an IRA or 401k with $500,000, we can really make some things happen. But for many people, whether they're early in their journey or they've kind of gone through some challenging circumstances with a divorce and their retirement savings has been cut in half, many of us are starting, or we're at a point in our investing career where our IRAs and 401ks are less than 50,000. So hopefully there'll be some value in there for you today. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time today discussing who we are. I want to make sure I try and add as much value as possible to the conversation. But what I will say is that we are a local provider of self-directed accounts. The headquarters is in Asheville, North Carolina. My office is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we really are kind of like the local bank as it pertains to self-directed IRAs and 401ks. Really our niche, if you will, in the self-directed world is dealing with real estate investors. That's where our founder came from. As Bob mentioned, that's kind of my background. And so ultimately, we think that we can add a little something to the conversation for real estate investors looking at how to potentially invest their IRAs and 401ks. Excuse me. So we actually just moved into a new primary residence. So for those of you that can see the visuals here tonight, I did throw a couple of books on the new bookshelf here so that it looks like I'm literate. So ultimately, we got a lot of fun things happening here tonight. But as it pertains to our fee structure, we're very different than the typical self-directed IRA provider. Normally what you see is one of two models. Either the model is the annual fee is going to be based on the size of the account. And so as your account balance grows, so does your annual fee. The other model is it's based on the number of assets held in your account. So for each asset you acquire, usually it's about $300 per year that your annual fee increases for each asset that you're acquiring. Excuse me. Our model and our theory really is that it's really not appropriate for us to be able to continuously charge you more money each year just simply because you're doing a great job of investing your funds. Because ultimately, the key here is these are self-directed accounts. So you as the account holder are picking the investments that make sense for your portfolio. So certainly our fees are really attractive, but that really doesn't mean much if the service is subpar. So what I'm most proud of with our team is that we do a phenomenal job servicing these accounts. The operations team, kind of the other end of the business, if you will, does a tremendous job of working with clients for the acquisition of assets, for the disposition of assets. Again, we're kind of like the local bank. We're not just trying to put everyone on a conveyor belt. And so we're really lucky to have not just a high quality rating, but also significant volume of positive reviews from our clients. So for any of you that are out there that may be current clients of American IRA and you've taken time out of your lives to give us a positive review, I'm really appreciative of that. So when we talk about IRAs and 401ks, certainly we typically tend to think about stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That's what most financial services companies offer for IRAs and 401ks. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. And we'll actually touch on that a little bit this evening. But really our secret sauce is that we allow clients to invest in alternative assets. And in speaking with fellow real estate investors, I think certainly that's not something I have to spend a lot of time convincing you that real estate is a tremendous asset class. But I think when it pertains to our IRAs and 401ks, it's really critical to kind of reimagine how we're thinking about that bucket of money. Because again, kind of the default is the stock market. But if you're really good at flipping houses or buying rentals or being a private lender, all of these types of opportunities are available to you with your retirement account as well. So in my mind, not being the brightest crayon in the box, I'm always a big fan of trying to keep it simple and trying to stay in my sphere of competency. And so if I feel like I'm competent in the real estate asset class, whether it's personal monies, whether it's retirement accounts, I really want to try to play to my strengths. And that's ultimately what these self-directed accounts are about. So fundamentally speaking, when we say the term self-directed retirement account, we're really saying two things. The first is, as the name indicates, they are self-directed. You as the account holder are picking investments for your portfolio. So we are not advisors that are out there suggesting certain real estate opportunities or certain strategies that are appropriate. It is truly self-directed. Now, the second component is while you can still invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds with us at American IRA, ultimately clients come to us because we're one of the few providers nationwide that will allow you to invest in what we consider alternative assets. And that's certainly what we'll unpack today. So as it pertains to IRAs and 401ks, really any IRA can always be self-directed. So if you have a Roth, a traditional, a SEP, or a simple IRA, at any point in time, you can elect to move those funds to another financial services provider. Now, the key is whether it's IRAs or 401ks, this does not have to be an all or nothing proposition. So you might just simply decide to move a portion of your retirement account to a self-directed provider. And that's certainly fine. You're looking to kind of further diversify your portfolio, and that makes a lot of sense. Really, the only time where your retirement account typically changes forms is if you have an old employer-sponsored plan, like a 401k, a 403b, or a thrift savings plan. Typically, those are pre-tax vehicles, so those will roll into a new pre-tax vehicle, many times an account such as a traditional IRA, for example. So again, as you can see from the screen, there are a number of self-directed accounts that you can choose from. And as Bob said, certainly anytime you're looking at either creating a new retirement account or switching retirement accounts, going from a pre-tax retirement account to a post-tax retirement account, certainly leaning on your CPA, your tax professional, to give you guidance and really speak through the pros and cons is going to be a critical step in that process. So the way the IRS code is written is it actually tells us what we cannot invest in with our retirement account. And that's basically collectibles and life insurance policies. So again, as you can see from the screen, there's a lot of different directions we can go. When we're looking at the real estate asset class, really any type of physical real estate can be purchased with your self-directed IRA or 401k. So it can be raw land, condos, townhomes, single-family homes, commercial buildings, industrial buildings. It could be apartment complexes. Really, whatever you deem to be an appropriate real estate investment, the key is that it needs to be for investment purposes. So you can't buy a new primary residence with your self-directed IRA or 401k. And unfortunately, you cannot buy a property that you and your family are going to get personal use from. Let's say a condo at the beach, a house in the mountains. We live in such a beautiful part of the country. There's a lot of interesting opportunities there. But ultimately, this needs to be strictly for investment purposes. So as it pertains to real estate, most typically what I discuss are kind of the fundamental strategies. So we're seeing our clients that are buying rental properties, they're doing fix and flips inside of their retirement account, kind of the blocking and tackling, the things that we're all kind of familiar with outside the retirement account. Those strategies can also be utilized inside of our IRAs and 401ks as well. So today we're going to kind of, as I said, go to that second and third level of ideas to maybe consider as it pertains to especially working smaller retirement accounts that you might feel like you don't have enough capital to utilize these accounts in the real estate world, hopefully we'll kind of give you some ideas. And again, to Bob's point, excuse me, we are a very knowledgeable firm. At the end of the day, we are simply the record keeper for your retirement account. So I am not promoting any of these strategies as appropriate for your IRA or for your 401k. It's always critical to lean on your tax and legal professionals to give you that guidance, and especially being really deep in your personal situation, your tax returns and what have you, they can give much better guidance than we can just as a macro presentation as to what we've seen clients do with their IRAs and 401ks. Now, what I'll also say, and we'll touch on it a little bit tonight, is that we see a lot of real estate entrepreneurs that are raising capital through other people's self-directed IRAs and 401ks as well. And most typically the way that will work is they will be out there speaking about their business, what they're looking for in terms of raising money so that they can do additional deals. And so they'll come across an individual that has an old 401k, or they have an IRA that they're maybe not super keen with how it's currently being invested. And so that's an opportunity to just simply share your story, share what opportunities you might have available to them, and actually kind of lead them to a new way of thinking about their IRA or 401k via a self-directed retirement account. So a lot of different directions we can go. So again, today's going to be kind of atypical strategies, but hopefully there's something in here that might be interesting. So as Bob mentioned, really all the things that we'll discuss tonight, I've had personal experience with, and I only say that just simply to share. Certainly we'll go through scenarios and how this can work. I'll likely, depending upon time, also share how I've made a mess with all of these different investment strategies. Having done this since 2002, I've made many, many, many mistakes. And just as Bob said, that's hopefully helpful to some investors as they're kind of going through their journey as well. Outside the retirement accounts, I tend to be almost strictly a buy and hold real estate investor. Inside these retirement accounts, it's been, as Bob said, tax liens and investing in creating notes for other real estate entrepreneurs, et cetera. So the first one is tax liens. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, tax liens are essentially just the idea of when somebody has not paid the property taxes on either a piece of land, a house, a commercial building, the county wants to recoup the revenue stream from the unpaid taxes. So essentially they put a lien on the property, and then they go and they sell that lien to the public. And certainly for that to be an interesting investment for the investment community, essentially, there needs to be some sort of return that can be potentially gained from these investors buying these tax liens. And so ultimately, South Carolina is certainly a state where we see a lot of our clients investing in tax liens. At least as of a few years ago, when I kind of phased out of this, it seemed like at least a number of the counties actually had in-person tax lien auctions, which was kind of interesting. And in my mind, perhaps kind of negates the overwhelming amount of investors that could be present and participating in that auction, which obviously kind of makes it tougher and tougher to make a return on your investment. So South Carolina is kind of an interesting state to do tax liens. So in this example, the way that this is going to work is that we're going to start with a client that just simply has about $10,000 in a self-directed account. They're going to purchase some very small liens. Maybe it's just some raw land, excuse me, for $1,000 to $1,500 per year. And so ultimately, we're going to assume that the stated return is going to be somewhere around 12% that they're making on these tax liens. And they're going to participate in this strategy for about 5 years. Now, in the 5th year, they're actually going to hit on an opportunity where the owner of the land, for whatever reason, is unable to pay the unpaid property taxes plus penalty, and essentially they let the property go. So this self-directed account is actually going to be able to end up acquiring this land that has some pretty fair value to it. of around $80,000, and they're going to sell it to a builder for $60,000. And the primary reason why it's being sold at a discount is, for those of you that I'm sure have much more experience than I do in the tax lien world, you find that tax lien properties, you're going to get a different type of deed associated with the ownership. It's not essentially crystal clear title, if you will, to that property. And so the buyer, if you decide to sell that asset, is going to have to do a little bit of work to clean up title. They might have to season that for a period of time, perhaps even years. And so that can make it something where the buyer is going to want a little bit of a discount from kind of retail or fair market value, if you will. So essentially, when you look at the deal points, we're going to assume we started with 10K, and we're going to assume this individual is under 50 years old, so they can contribute up to $6,000 a year. And even though the interest rate is 12% on these tax liens, we're going to assume that the actual compounding rate is 8%, just simply because not all of your money is working all the time, which certainly we all can appreciate. So the subtotal is 51,000 from those two elements. But again, in year 5 with that 60K land sale, the total amount, we started with 10, we make our contributions, we grow it methodically, could end up being over $100,000 based upon especially the sale of land, where we kind of got lucky. We hit on one just simply from purchasing a volume of tax liens. Excuse me. So the next one is lending on mobile homes. So certainly this is, again, something that is very doable in the Carolinas. And so a term that I love, and a term that I've always heard throughout the years, is the riches are in the niches. You can find money, you can find opportunities where other people aren't necessarily looking. It's not necessarily as interesting or sexy of a strategy, submarket, whatever the case may be. And I've found that there are a lot of good operators that tend to deal in manufactured homes. And so whether they're keeping them as rentals or they're fixing them up, making them very nice properties, and then selling them to somebody that's going to make it their primary residence, you find investors that can be very competent in this space. And that's kind of their expertise, dealing in these manufactured homes. And depending upon their ability to find deals, sometimes they have a lot more deals than they have capital to be able to take these deals down. Now, I'm certainly, again, no expert on the manufactured home world, but my kind of limited understanding is financing, especially for investment properties for manufactured homes, is a lot more challenging to get than stick-built homes that are kind of much easier to finance. So this can be an opportunity, if it kind of meets your criteria and where you're trying to go with your investing, to be a private lender, to get a first position mortgage, and just do it on a slightly different asset. So a model that I had used with a couple of really competent manufactured home flippers was, the deal would typically cost about $30,000. This is purchase and rehab. And the borrower would agree to pay me $1,000 a month until they exit the property. And the key here is I would not prorate the monthly payment. So if it took them 35 days from purchase to sale, then that would mean that they owed me $2,000 for the use of these funds. Now, why am I not talking about interest rates? Why am I not talking about a yield? When we're dealing with these smaller sums of capital, if we put this on paper, this could be 30, 40% in terms of an annualized interest rate, essentially, that we're charging that borrower. And so just simply as a human being, a lot of people can't jump over that hurdle. So if we talk in terms of sums of money, $1,000 a month for them to have the opportunity, usually to make about $15,000 to $25,000 selling this property net, that's something that works for them, and that's a repeatable process. And again, in most of these scenarios, they're doing a no money down real estate deal. I'm giving them all of the money for the purchase, the rehab, the closing. They're turning around and making 15 to 25K. And usually it's not a crazy rehab. Again, these are 30 to usually 60-day turnarounds. So it's something that has been kind of an interesting way to think about being a private lender. And so if you're able to spin a number of these deals each year, again, from a yield perspective, the return on your investment can be really kind of off the charts, even even in the real estate world, when you're thinking about being that passive private lender. So it's really just something to consider. And again, I just looked at 1 year in which I did this, and the average close to close period was about 42 days. So just a little food for thought there. Now, number 3 is cryptocurrency investing. So again, some of these are not actually necessarily going to be real estate related. We do get a lot of our real estate clients that are, again, looking to diversify, but they don't love the idea of the stock market. So they're wanting exposure to different types of assets. So it could be Bitcoin, Ripple, Ethereum. It's something that I certainly don't pretend to know, frankly, anything about. I was smart enough just to get out of a couple of those assets right before they just went to the moon and skyrocketed. And, depending upon the asset themselves, they've 5x or 10x since I sold about a year ago. So I'm a genius when it comes to many things, but especially these digital assets. So long story short, the way that we found to be able to administer these assets is for clients to form an LLC for their retirement account, which is interesting for me to talk about because I usually am not a proponent of clients utilizing IRA or 401k owned LLCs. There's just a whole discussion around that, but that's really the only way that we can competently service that type of asset for our clients. So the client creates an IRA or 401k owned LLC. It's a very specific type of LLC that's created. It's not the boilerplate LLCs that many of us are used to when we're doing our rental properties or our fix and flips. But then ultimately that LLC can create the account with whatever platform they choose to create that relationship for the Bitcoin. So ultimately what we find, as with anything, whether it's real estate, whether it's digital assets like Bitcoin, we find that there are some investors that want to be kind of shorter term traders. They think that they can kind of time the market. I certainly can't. And then we have others that are looking to just simply get exposure to this asset. They're going to set it and forget it and wake up and check in years down the road, and hopefully they've seen significant appreciation. So again, just an idea to think about. So the next idea, and I believe this is our last non-real estate related concept, is just simply the idea of purchasing securities. So again, really where we shine is real estate. It's investing in debt instruments such as mortgages, tax liens, things of that nature. But for our clients that have a significant amount of cash sitting and they perceive it to be potentially sitting there for a long period of time, we do have a relationship with TD Ameritrade so that they can get that exposure to the stock market. So the way that that works is they simply let us know that they want us to create a sub account under their American IRA account so that they can go through TD Ameritrade once that account is open and funded. They use their own login and ID to get into TD Ameritrade, and then ultimately the retirement account is going to be able to acquire whatever index funds, mutual funds, individual stocks, etc., that they deem to be appropriate for their retirement account. Now, idea number 5, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is the idea of being a wholesaler. So essentially, as many of you know, the real estate investor comes across an off-market deal typically, and then they decide to put the property under contract and or assigns with the intent to sell that contract or assign that contract to another investor. So an example of that could be a property that's currently worth, and it's as is condition, about 100K. Your 401k or IRA puts the property under contract for, let's say, $68,000 with the owner. That retirement account then decides to assign that contract to a landlord who loves the property. It's still going to cash flow. Let's say it's going to rent for $1,200 a month. It's a good deal for them. And so ultimately, when that landlord purchases this property at closing, there's going to be a settlement line item that articulates that the retirement account is actually getting paid $14,000 in this case as an assignment fee. Now, the key is there has to be skin in the game from the retirement account. So it could be whatever's agreeable with the seller. It could be $1,000, could be $5,000, but ultimately the retirement account cannot have an infinite rate of return. It has to have money going out for there to be profit coming back in, which makes sense when you think about it. So idea number 6 is investing in private companies. And so usually when I speak about this, it's talking about investing in startup companies. So it could be a tech company, it could be a restaurant, it could be a landscaping company. And so there are clients that want exposure to that private equity world. But for us as real estate investors, what I see on a daily basis is, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the idea of syndication deals in real estate. Usually it's something like a mobile home park or a 500 unit apartment complex, some sort of scaled up real estate project where a lead investor is looking to raise money from a group of passive investors to use usually as a down payment, and then they go and get institutional financing for the remaining balance. And then ultimately, this group of investors gets to profit from the cash flow, and then perhaps at some point down the road, the ultimate exit from the property and the sale of that asset. And so that's something that we see where syndicators are raising money, and they're getting more and more intelligent about raising money from retirement accounts, because usually that's longer term money, and usually that's more substantial money. You can have somebody that has worked a W-2 job for 30, 40 years, and maybe they don't have a tremendous amount in savings, but they have an old 401k that has $300,000 in it. They always wanted to be a real estate investor, but as Bob spoke about earlier, so many people fail to kind of launch their real estate career, and it's so frustrating. And so syndications can be a way to participate in real estate, but in a far more passive way. So idea number 7 is lending as a junior lien on a property. So essentially what we're doing here is that we're looking at a scenario where there's an investor that's purchased a property, and we'll assume that this is a fix and flip property. And for one reason or another, they're needing additional capital to be able to finish this project off. Certainly, almost every rehab I do, even on a buy and hold, tends to go way over budget. So I'm certainly empathetic to the plight of this real estate investor. And so they are looking for just a little bit of capital to be able to finish this project off. So your retirement account could potentially, if you deem it appropriate, be a junior lien or a second mortgage on a property. Now, certainly anytime we're a lender, there's a number of things to consider, but in this situation, we probably want to be very sensitive to what has happened this far in the deal. So maybe we're talking to the original lien holder to get a feel for how the borrower is communicating. Are they just going dark on us? They're not communicating anymore. We can't find them anywhere, and they're just out there trying to find additional money? Have they been really good and honest about saying, like, listen, hey, I'm over budget. I ended up putting in a new bathroom when I thought that the original one was going to be sufficient to sell. Whatever the case may be, it's nice to hear kind of what the story has been to this point, because if the original lien holder is not having a positive experience, especially in terms of communication, certainly we can expect the same treatment at some point down the road as well. And then ultimately looking at the total loan to value, the total debt to value of this property, if we are to put our additional capital in. So the property might be worth about $200,000. The initial lender put in $110,000, and the borrower is looking for $115K $15K to finish off this rehab. So the total loan to value could be about 62% if we're looking at the 125 on a $200,000 asset. So for some of us, that's a deal we feel comfortable with. For others, we'll say, I don't want to be a junior lien. I want to be a first mortgage holder, and I want to be the only mortgage holder if I'm going to lend on a piece of real estate. The great thing, as we know about entrepreneurship and real estate investing, is your answer is the right answer. You get to call the shots. So whatever you think makes sense for your portfolio is certainly the route to go. Excuse me. And lastly, my personal favorite is buying properties with seller financing. To me, it's the holy grail. This is where we get to cultivate our best deals, our best win-wins for the seller as well as ourselves as the buyer. As many of you know, so many of those long-term landlords will actually prefer to sell a property in an installment sale. Essentially, they're willing to take back a mortgage to someone they feel like can be a good operator, because they don't want to take a huge tax hit by selling a property that probably doesn't have a mortgage on it, that they're going to have a huge recapture of depreciation. And essentially, they might end up with 60 or 70% of the net profits after they pay Uncle Sam all that they're owed for this long-term asset. So long story short, seller financing, again, as so many of you know, and I'm sure practice, is a phenomenal way to do real estate deals. So I just pulled out a deal. This is not necessarily atypical. I'm sure many of you do these deals on a daily basis. I'm sure many of you do deals that are better than this, but this is something that is certainly doable in today's market. So in this example, the property is worth about 130, 140. I'm calling this gentleman Mr. Jeffries, was willing to sell me the property for 120K. So not a huge discount there, right? So why would I buy this deal? Why does this make sense? He wanted a $10,000 down payment. He looked at my shabby car, he looked at my shabby clothes, and he said, all right, I'm going to give this guy a break and I'll take $5,000 down. So essentially there was $115,000 that we put on a 30-year note at 3% with the balloon in 20 years. So after 20 years, the note would be called and I would owe roughly about $50,000 on this asset. So the principal and interest is going to be about $484 a month. Taxes are about $200 a month. Insurance is about $30 a month. Again, I realize in North Carolina, the property taxes are a good bit lower for a pretty solid property than they are for non-owner occupied in South Carolina. You guys certainly have your own advantages, but these numbers may be a little bit different. I do respect that. But ultimately, we put very little into this property. It was really kind of a paint carpet turnaround. The property rents for $1,250 a month. So I think certainly for those of you that are getting into the real estate game, we always like the idea of buying with a huge amount of equity. If it's worth 130, we're always told we want to buy at no more than maybe $100,000. We want to buy with significant equity there. But if we buy with good terms, and in this case, in my mind, it's very little capital that we're having to put into this deal between down payment and fixing this property up. And then ultimately, it's a pretty solid asset that even if it's frankly poorly managed, at least covers itself. And the properties in many of these neighborhoods, I'm sure you're experiencing this in the Columbia market. The properties are, appreciation's going through the roof. So we all look like geniuses, even though unfortunately I'm certainly not. Maybe some of you are, but time is the friend of the real estate investor. So even if it covers itself, you're going to look back in 10, 20 years and say, things worked out okay. So if we can just hold on to these good assets, it can work out really well. So Bob has always, as I said, been just a phenomenal friend of ours. He's been really great to allow me to be able to share a little bit, hopefully something valuable with the group. And so because of that, we do certainly always waive the setup fees for any of you that decide to move forward at some point and become clients. Just simply make us aware that you heard my talk at Midlands REIA, and we'll be happy to waive the setup fee. I'm not going to do that cheesy sales thing where it's, if you set up your account in the next week or the next 30 days, we'll waive the setup fee. It's whenever it's right for you. I don't want to sell you into this opportunity. It's self-directed. It has to make sense for where you're going with your investments. So whether it's next week or it's a year from now, knock on wood, I've been at American IRA since 2008. I'm hoping to have a very long career at American IRA. So we'll be happy to be a service provider whenever the time is right for you. So Bob, apologies, I'm not really sure what you want to do format wise, but that's really just kind of my spiel. Again, my information's up here. And if there are any questions, if there's anything that anyone would like to share, if I could be a resource in some way, I'd love to help out.
Hey, Sean, you do nationwide, right? I mean, not just the local area, the region.
Absolutely. Yes. So whether it's where the clients are located, they can live nationwide. We actually have some clients that live internationally, and the investments can be nationwide. Sometimes they can buy real estate internationally. That can certainly be a little bit tricky, but yes, we are a nationwide company. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. The thing I like about American IRA is if something should, now it won't, but if something should go wrong up the road, knock on Sean's door. So I wouldn't recommend it, but anyway,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate it. Yeah, you can get personal. In my experience, you can get personal service with Sean.
Thank you. Yeah.
I know some of the, oh yeah, some of the bigger IRA companies, you get bounced around. It's, you're put on hold and whatnot. Yeah, I know Sean and the American IRA team will appreciate this, Sean. This is really great.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, and same with my supervisors at the company. My department heads have been with us largely for 8, 10 plus years. So you're not, as Bob said, you're not recreating the wheel with relationships on a regular basis. Again, knock on wood. Hopefully, we can keep retaining our quality people. But yeah, any way we can help out, we'd love to.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I noticed was you actually taught me a couple of techniques to not just how to use my IRA into some of these deals, but also how to my private lenders, how to use their IRAs to fund my deals. I appreciate that. Now, the first person I actually saw speak from American IRA was Jim Hitt. Does he still speak?
So Jim is our founder. He's our CEO. He's largely not as involved in the day to day anymore. He's put in his dues. He did the hard work. He launched this bad boy and got us to a point where it's a company that we're all proud of. So he's been doing more RVing these days and traveling and just doing the things that he wants to do. So he's still certainly our compass, and he's still our founder, but largely he's not as accessible anymore. So yeah, not so much of the education, what have you.
Okay, well, I look forward to one day meeting some of your newer team members as well. But thank you, Sean.
Absolutely.
Questions for Sean? This is some real gold stuff that Sean's dropping on us.
I have a couple of quick questions for you, Sean. Thank you for your presentation. First question is, am I correct in understanding that the 2020 contribution to an IRA, the deadline has been extended to May 17th?
Yes,
is that
sir.
Correct?
It has. Absolutely.
Okay. And if I were to open up one of these IRAs, I know you said the fee was $285 regardless of how much you have in there. How much is like the average fee if I were to loan money to somebody? So both on setting it up and also to get the money back as well.
Absolutely. That's a great question. If you don't mind, I'll kind of take you through that first year journey, what that looks like. So the 285 is the baseline annual fee. So really the break point for us is just simply assuming the account balance is over $7,500, your annual fee is $285. Now, there's also a transactional component. Anytime you create or you purchase an asset or you sell an asset, that's what we consider a transaction. So the creating of this note would be a transaction. When you fully exit and you're no longer the lender on the real estate deal, on the back end, that's also a transaction as well. And so really the analysis would be, is this going to be a note that we would have as a short-term note, let's say a fix and flip, where we expect to be out of the deal within 12 months? Okay, great. So in that scenario, so for transactions, you can either pay a la carte. So you could pay $95 anytime you want to buy or sell an asset. So if you just want to buy one long-term rental, you probably go a la carte. For most of the other opportunities, you'd want to go with unlimited transactions, which is $165 a year. So that will cover the purchase and the sale of notes, of rental properties, of setting up a TD Ameritrade account, or whatever the case may be. And beyond that, it's hard costs. So our bank charges us $30 for wires. Usually, as I'm sure you're aware, as a lender, there's not usually outgoing checks. But ultimately, too, another thing too, as I'm sure you're aware, is as a lender, we can pass along fees to our borrowers, just as there's always points and administration costs and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So you can always get, if you desire, a true yield on your investment capital. So let's say you agree to, 2 points and 12% interest. You can say, and by the way, I have some administration costs for kind of creating this note with you. And so all of those American IRA fees could actually be paid by your borrower as well.
Sounds good. I think I had one other question, but I can't remember what it is. So I'm going to leave someone else to ask first.
Sure.
But thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad Andy spoke up. That reminds me to ask you, Sean. Andy has a son. I believe Sam is 3 years old. I think 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy.
That's correct.
Is there obviously it's kind of tough to have earned income at 3. Is there any way to set him up for, say, like a self-directed IRA or something?
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's really kind of 2 avenues to explore. So I have a 7 and a 5-year-old. And so we've set up Coverdale educational accounts for the children. So those are accounts you could put up to $2,000 a year, and the monies grow tax-free, and they can be pulled out for any sort of qualified educational expense. It doesn't have to be college. It could be you decide to pay for private schooling for elementary, middle school, high school, etc. So that's kind of lane number 1, is the Coverdale educational account. And especially with these smaller accounts, a lot of times what we see is they're kind of bolt-on accounts. So the Coverdale might partner with your IRA to make a loan so that they can get that solid yield on investment as well. So lane number 2 is you'd want to have a discussion certainly with your CPA. There's a huge variance in terms of how CPAs want to see this, but we see some clients and CPAs that are very aggressive with allowing children to be, quote unquote models for the parent's business, or, they're doing something. Obviously, again, 3 is certainly very young. So it's usually the modeling play when they're that young. I'm not going to kind of share my personal feelings on that. Again, your CPA needs to kind of guide you as to whether that's appropriate. But if they, at whatever age they deem it appropriate, and there is that earned income, certainly a Roth IRA, the ability to grow tax-free is a phenomenal tool. So those are really kind of the 2 lanes that might be worth looking at, is the Coverdale and the Roth IRA specifically.
Let's say you have a Coverdale set up for one of your children, and let's say they decide not to use it for educational purposes. Can that be converted to, say, a Roth IRA?
Absolutely. So really typically what we see is that the Coverdale is usually gifted to some other family member if that initial child opts not to use it. It can also stay with the original kind of intended individual, and it can just simply be distributed to them. In terms of functionality to other kind of tax sheltered vehicles, again, really want to work with your CPA as to what's appropriate there. And a lot of times what we'll see is, well, I'll just leave it at that. I've seen, a huge variance in terms of how CPAs like to deal with unused Coverdales and what have you. But yeah, great question there.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Going back to your question about the Roth, can I convert the IRA to a Roth IRA and just pay the taxes? Is that something you could help me with as well?
Absolutely. So the key is with these self-directed accounts, it's the identical rules and regulations for the retirement accounts themselves. Self-directed is really just a marketing term we're using. At its core, you have the Roths, the traditionals, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, you can. And the key is, as you mentioned, Andy, that you're going to have that tax consequence for going from a pre-tax traditional IRA, for example, to a post-tax Roth IRA. So as long as you're comfortable and you feel like it's appropriate to make that conversion, that's something you can do with your self-directed account as well.
And you don't have to go through the traditional Roth IRA requirements, is that correct? The income requirements are waived if you create it and then convert it.
Absolutely. So Andy's making a great point. So there are high income earners that cannot directly contribute to a Roth IRA. And so really what happens is the IRS just essentially dictates that we have to take one extra step. So we create and we fund a pre-tax vehicle like a traditional IRA. And then very soon after, within days, we'll see clients, they'll elect to convert that traditional to a Roth. So sometimes it's called a backdoor Roth conversion. So we're ultimately ending up with that Roth IRA product, regardless of, we have clients that make 7 figures a year and they elect to just do this backdoor Roth component. So yes, everyone can ultimately end up with a Roth if they choose to. And then certainly understanding they'll just have to take that extra step there.
Thank you, Sean.
Absolutely. Thanks for the thoughts.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else who has any other questions? This is really good stuff, folks. And as long as Sean's on, it's a good time to ask him. Does anyone have any questions?
This is Ron Baker. Yes, I have a question. I have a uniform TSP, and I would have to either leave it in there or I can move it out at retirement. So sounds like one of the options I potentially could have, because it's a traditional. I did not opt for the Roth conversion when it came out in 2012, I think it was, or 2015. So is that an option to have that traditional and then potentially convert it to a Roth?
Thank you. So, sorry, just so I'm clear, is it currently in a TSP form? Is it currently a thrift savings plan, or it's been converted to a traditional IRA?
It's in the TSP form right now.
Okay. So at least my experience is that usually if it's in a TSP currently, and that's with your current employer, is that correct?
It's military, DOD. So it's so we have the uniform service, then we have civilian.
Yes, sir. And
when I retire, I'll either be able to leave it in there or I can take it out and put it into a Roth, an IRA or a Roth, IRA traditional or a Roth. And I understand based on that conversation and the conversation I've had with our transition assistance is that there's a tax consequence for that conversion to the Roth.
That is correct. So as you said, that has certainly been my experience, is that it will stay in its TSP form, as you said, until you retire. And then once you retire, the natural movement will be to another pre-tax vehicle, such as a traditional IRA. That certainly does not create a tax consequence, as I'm sure you're aware. But as you mentioned, if you elect to then take those traditional monies and convert them to Roth, then that movement will create a tax consequence. However, what I will say, and usually in practice, what I find is that ultimately CPAs will guide their clients to doing a multi-year Roth conversion. It's just like we spoke about, if you sell that property that you've owned for 40 years, you're going to get hammered on recapture and your tax consequences and what have you. So in that case, the installment sale is useful. With the Roth conversion, unless there's some very specific reason that in this tax year we need to get to a Roth, usually spreading that tax consequence over multiple years will ease the pain, if you will. So for example, if we have $100,000 in the traditional IRA and we do that conversion to a Roth in 1 year, that's counted as $100,000 in additional earned income for us. And so we might end up only being able, after taxes, we might only be left with, let's say, $70,000. Conversely, if we decide to be a little bit more patient and let's say over a 5-year period, we're taking that $100,000 out, let's say in $20,000 increments, then that $20,000 is not as much of a hit from a tax standpoint, typically speaking. Now, I say that the caveat to that would be, let's say you're typically a higher income earner and there's one tax year, let's say you had unfortunate circumstances. It doesn't sound like you do with your current job, but just for anyone listening, if you were let go due to the pandemic and so your W-2 income is wiped away. And so this would be a really unique year to do that Roth conversion. That's certainly a discussion to have with your CPA, but all things being equal, I find a multi-year Roth conversion tends to be something at least worth discussing with your CPA.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's consistent with what they told me.
Yes, sir.
Try to convert it over time.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Ron. I didn't know that either, but that's interesting. Does anyone else have any questions for Sean? This is a gold man right here.
Very kind man, Bob. I appreciate it.
And of course, you have I guess in the worst case, if there's no questions, right on your screen is Sean's phone number and email. Okay, and he will get back to you. You know, unlike some of these other providers who treat us like numbers.
Thank you for that.
So,
and Bob, if you don't mind, I actually had just emailed you right before the slides for the presentation. So if anyone in the group wants to revisit those and has any questions when they have a little bit more time to spend with that, I'm happy to help. We've been very fortunate to grow. So if anyone posts this evening wants to have a direct conversation with me, please make sure you let the office know that that you participated in the Midland REIA presentation. We tend to, just as a general point of client flow, have conversations with non-clients go to our sales team, and they do a fantastic job, but obviously they weren't here live for the flow of conversation and what was discussed this evening. So if you find that for whatever reason I can be of value specifically to your particular question, again, just please let the office know about this event, and they'll be able to put you through.
yeah, Katina just put in a text. I guess she'll be contacting you about some accounts from previous employers.
Great, thank you.
So that, yeah, Sean will definitely put you in the right direction. Sean, I did notice you sent, looks like the slides to this. Is it okay if I make them? What I do is I typically post the replay on our website, and is it okay if I make the slides?
That'd be great. Thank you. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sean. Is there anyone else who has a question for Sean? Okay, well, Sean, I think we're going to give you about a 15-minute reprieve should you decide you want to leave. Okay, so.
Thank you so much. No, I appreciate everyone working through it with me this evening, and thank you for your thoughts and questions. And again, if I can be a resource moving forward, love to help you out.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
So, okay, anyway, we're trying something new. Sean, I'm going to grab screen control back from you if that's
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me see. How does that work?
Maybe I have to relinquish it. Let me see.
Oh.
Stop share, maybe.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Now, one thing that I got this idea from Bill Tan, who runs the Los Angeles REIA. I'm going to stick around maybe about another half an hour or so to see if anyone wants to discuss questions they've been having and whatnot. Kind of like a little brainstorming session. I'm going to see how that works. That if I catch on, we might end up even doing this after the live meetings. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to bring up? Maybe tell their night. You know, what I learned was a few ways I can structure deals using my self-directed IRA. Thank you, Sean. So does anyone have it up at all? It doesn't have to be necessarily related to what Sean presented either. Sean, I hear crickets.
I put him to sleep, Bob. Sorry.
I don't think so. Okay, well, I'm going to have to contact Bill and see how does he keep these things going, because he actually does a really good job at keeping. It's called the after meeting. So I'm going to have to contact Bill to see how to keep. But anyway, well, if nobody has any questions or has anything else they want to discuss, I guess we'll just call it a night. We'll call it in about maybe 12. I hope no one has a problem. We'll have the recording up as well as Sean's slides. Give me a couple days, okay? And someone just putting it. Oh, okay. Oh, Shacklin's just saying thank you for all the information, says Tanya and Rick. Well, thank you for attending. I appreciate it. Okay, well, everyone have a great evening then. And one day I hope you can come back down. In reality, what we'd be doing is we'd be taking you out to dinner before the meeting. Okay, so but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for attend. Okay, well, everyone have a great evening, okay? And keep an eye on your email as well as in Facebook for the recording. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Bob.
Folks.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Have a nice.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Adios.